1 game, 2 hours. Hook me. Othercide. And with that, I welcome you to yet another episode. This time we're taking a look at Othercide, a turn-based tactics RPG published by Focus Home Interactive and developed by Lightbulb crew. They are a medium-sized indie development company with, according to their website, roughly 25 members, with locations in France and Sweden, though the majority of the team sits directly in Paris. Chances are you probably haven't heard of them before, as Othercide is only their second game, following in the footsteps of Games of Glory, which is a free-to-play top-down action team shooter. And while Games of Glory had a rather mixed reception, Othercide seems to be doing pretty well for them so far, and for good reason, because it has quite a few things going for it. Generally, the game takes place on, well, the other side, also known as the Dark Corner, where you take control of the Red Mother and her daughters and set out to end suffering. And suffering manifests itself in the form of nightmarish creatures and demons. And the way to end suffering is to basically beat the living hell out of them. At least that's how I understood it. The story isn't exactly being spoon-fed to you. Othercide takes a rather Spartan and ominous approach to storytelling, though it certainly has its own edgy charm.
The other could shred the veil and devour our world. Will you stay with me until the end? I'll give what I can, what I have left. Let it go here and no further.
But Othercide isn't just any old grid-based, turn-based tactics RPG, it also has a few roguelite elements to it. So everything takes place within what is called a recollection, which is basically the same as a run in any given roguelite. And these recollections consist of 7 days. On any given day, you can manage your troops, and you have to complete at least 1 synapse. A synapse is a mission. Missions range from survival, which is very self-explanatory, over hunt, which is just eliminating all the enemies in the area, up to rescue, which is you escorting a frail bright soul to the end of the level. And once you reach the 7th day, you have to confront the Recollection's boss. And let me tell you, these bosses are no pushovers. But if you manage to defeat them, naturally you will advance to the next era. However, if you fail to defeat them and all your daughters die, the recollection ends, the run is over. But death isn't the end. Because here's the thing, Othercide expects you to fail. Dying and rising up again is a very integral part of the game. And that's also where the roguelite meta progression comes into play. You see, at the end of a recollection, you will have accumulated a certain amount of shards. And these shards can be used to buy remembrances for your next recollection. And remembrances are basically little bonuses or gimmicks that will enhance your next run. For example, more health for your daughters or a decrease in cost for enhancing skills, amongst many others. And in addition to that, the daughters that died on your last run will still be available at the cemetery. And they will keep their skills and level, which makes it possible for you to resurrect them with their old strength and improve them even further, given you can get your hands on a resurrection stone. And to mix recollections up a little bit, on any given day there is a chance for an event to occur, and these events will alter missions in various ways. So you'll be kept on your toes and it doesn't get stale. But now that I've mentioned daughters a few times, let's actually take a closer look and see what they're about.
You will wield my memories like a sword, and with them, grow our army.
So daughters are the troops that you'll be using to combat the manifestations of suffering. They can be grouped into 3 different base classes. For one, there is the Shield Bearer, who serves as a tank and is good at disrupting enemies. Next, the Blade Master, who, as you might have guessed, can unleash some devastating melee attacks. And last but not least, the Soul Slinger, who is kind of a ranged support character. And while 3 classes may not sound like much, there are a lot of ways to customize any given character and make them truly unique. For instance, when a daughter levels up, you will be presented with 2 skills and have to make the choice which one to acquire. Additionally, any given skill can be further enhanced with memories. These can be dropped from enemies and affect the way a skill works, or improve it in strength or add a special bonus effect. And to increase variety even further, there are also traits. Now, most of these can't be directly affected by you. They are acquired throughout the game under certain conditions and in special circumstances. An example of this would be a daughter that is heavily wounded or has been close to death multiple times might acquire a trait that permanently gives her a little bit more armor in exchange for some movement. The only trait that you can directly affect is when you sacrifice one daughter to heal another, because depending on the class and level of the sacrificed daughter, the resulting trait will have different effects. And I do believe that you unlock a 4th class as the game progresses. But enough about all the theory. Let's sink our fangs into the real meat of this game: the combat. Generally, the combat will be dictated by the timeline at the bottom of the screen. There you can see the turn order and what's about to happen. Whenever it's your character's turn, you will have 100 action points to spend. However, you can only ever move up 50 or 100 initiative units on the timeline. That means, as long as you spend anywhere between 0 and 50 action points, you will move up 50 units on the timeline, putting you at the halfway point. If you decide to spend over 50 action points, you will enter what is called a burst, putting you at the very end of the timeline, regardless of how many points you spent. So for example, if you use up 30 action points on your turn, you will still be moved up 50 units on the timeline. However, if you decide to spend 60 action points, you will be moved to the very end of the timeline, despite the fact that you theoretically still have 40 action points left. So you might as well make use of them. And this of course brings an interesting dynamic into the combat, because such an all-out burst might allow you to kill an enemy before they can take their turn, while on the other hand leaving your character very vulnerable for a long time. Much like in XCOM or similar titles, positioning is very important, as characters can be flanked or backstabbed for additional damage. Skills can be grouped into 2 categories: instant and delayed. Now, instant skills are, well, instant. They take effect immediately and can be used multiple times within a turn. Delayed skills, on the other hand, will end your turn and only be executed after a certain amount of time has passed. They are of course usually very powerful, but you do have to keep in mind that if the delay takes too long, an enemy might move out of its area of effect before it actually gets executed. Regular abilities can be used by spending action points. However, certain reactionary skills can only be activated by spending the character's blood. As the name would suggest, these skills happen in reaction to a certain event. For example, an enemy walking into melee range or attacking one of your units. And they open up the possibility for some really cool combos. A fun little example would be to set one daughter up with a reactionary skill that triggers whenever an opponent takes damage, and setting a second daughter up with a reactionary skill that triggers whenever they are in melee range. And when it's your third daughter's turn, you could shield bash an enemy into melee range of the second one, thus triggering her reactionary skill because the enemy got into melee range, and triggering the other daughter's reactionary skill twice because the enemy took damage from shield bash, as well as the reactionary skill of the second daughter. This might sound a little confusing, but I'm just trying to convey the fact that there is actually quite a bit of depth to this combat, and given some time and practice, you can do some pretty cool stuff. It's probably clear to see that these reactionary skills can be quite strong, but keep in mind, executing these costs health, and that's kind of a big deal, because a daughter can only be healed by sacrificing another daughter of the same or higher level, so preserving their health is usually your top priority. And resurrecting them isn't easy as it requires a resurrection stone, and those can only be acquired on rescue missions. So the fact that daughters can't be healed easily and the already challenging difficulty kind of justify the name Nightmare mode. But if this sounds too hard for you, there is also a dream mode in which health regenerates over time and you get some additional resurrection stones. So don't let the difficulty put you off. In regards to the graphics, there isn't much to say besides that I absolutely love the aesthetic. Everything in this game just looks so damn cool. Let's not beat around the bush, this game got me, hook, line and sinker. I'm not particularly intrigued by the story, but the combat paired with the meta progression and the amazing aesthetic is enough to keep me engaged. And if you enjoy these turn-based tactic games like XCOM or just punishing difficulty in general, I definitely recommend you check it out too. The price for Othercide is currently $34.99, in Europe as well as the US. But of course, depending on your exact location, your prices may vary. And with that, we are wrapping up another episode. So that's it for Othercide. Give it a try if you think it might be up your alley. I freaking love it. Please remember to like or dislike using the buttons below, subscribe for more, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Flawless.